Hello, my name is Sam, and welcome to another video talking about Tapforms 5 for iOS and Mac. Today we're back on the iPad. I've been using the iPad a lot lately because I've been working in hotels, I've been traveling, and that's basically meant that a lot of what I've been doing has been here on the iPad. Again, I'm using this with a keyboard set up with the trackpad so that I can work away with a keyboard and trackpad in the editor here. What I wanted to do today is a really quick video with a behind the scenes of what it looks like to see a script that is not finished yet. A lot of the videos I do focus on finished scripts, stuff that I've already worked on and already sort of have the answer for. This video, we're going to look at this brand new script that I'm working on called Manage Fields. And Manage Fields for me is a way of solving some problems around wanting to have some values inside of the scripting for fields where they maybe have rules around whether they can update or not, whether for notes field it's append or not, or if I just want to log the transitions. So this script I've spent maybe an hour or so working on, might be an hour and a half, where I've been stealing time here and there to slowly construct it up together. This script's not done. So what I want to do is, with this current snapshot, take a video, see where we're at, so that you can see what's going on and go from there. Now, we're starting the script out, pulling in two other scripts. The first is get records from form matching search, and the second is get record from form with key. These are two scripts out of my script manager that allow me to find either a set of records that are matching a certain set of search criteria or are matching an exact key. The assumption of the first one is that there might be multiple matches, and the assumption of the second one is there will only ever be a single match. So those are two scripts that I'm pulling in to make things quicker when developing this bit of code. The next thing is also another script manager option. It is the all fields output, and what that does is it allows you to generate field values that have, for field IDs and form IDs, that have a field prefix. So we can see it's got field underscore configuration here, underscore form ID, and we've got a form ID, and then field underscore configuration, and then form, and then field ID, and it says that this is a text. Similarly, field with field ID and text, and the configuration, and that's actually a notes field. The script inside of the script manager generates this and logs this to the console so that you can run it on your script, on your forms, and get the output and copy it into your scripts. Pretty cool in my mind. This is really useful when working with multiple different forms, and maybe the field IDs are similarly named, but they're actually in different forms, or if you're looking for different link to field field IDs. It's really kind of a useful way of coding this in, and it has some notes so that you know what they are, so that you can figure out what type it is, and also makes it a little bit easier to write this out, because you can write out the field IDs in this sort of form and then come back and add in the actual values. So the next thing is a function called get managed field config, which returns the field configuration of the specified field. As I said, this is very much still in development. So it takes one parameter, which is a string, which is the field ID, and that's the ID of the field to retrieve the configuration. Makes sense. And then we return either an object or undefined, the field configuration if it's available, or undefined if not set. Now, you'll notice a little more in some of the other functions. The doc block here is actually, for me, so that I can sort of get my thoughts. I mean, it's useful later for when other people look at my code and want to understand what it does. But for me, I'm actually using it here right now to sort of understand how some of this comes together, in some cases before I've even written all of the code. So in this case, we log that we're getting the field configuration. We try to get the form for the managed field configuration, Originally, it was just called field configuration. I renamed it to manage field. If that fails, we throw an error, and that should bubble up. And then we have the search criteria, and the search criteria is used with get records from form matching search. But you can see that it's key value pairs for the field IDs and then the value that we're looking for. And then we check to see how many values we get back from this search. So if we get 0, the result is undefined. If we get 1, we assume that this is a JSON compatible item, and we try to return that. And then if we get more than 1, so 2, 3, however many, keeping in mind that get records from form matching search can return more than one result, we actually throw an error, because this is an unsupported situation where there are multiple configurations and we sort of don't want to proceed. And we also have here a fallback error for when I'd really early on written this as basically a fallback to make sure that everything goes through the correct paths, and if it doesn't, we throw an error and I can fix that. Next, here's a very simple implementation so far, but it's not actually done. This is set manage field configuration, which updates the configuration for a given field. And again, I'm using DocBlocks here to figure out how I want this to actually work. And this is actually the first documentation of what this thing will be able to do. So it'll be able to handle automatically appending to note fields. So if you've got a value, it'll append to the string and then reset the value. If you have no value, obviously, then it sets the value. Update earlier is for date fields or date time fields. And basically, it only updates the value if it sets it to an earlier value. And the idea here is that if you set a date, you can't set it. If a field already has a date set, it can't come to a later date. It can be updated earlier, so it can go earlier, but it can't become a later date. For me, this is what I want to use for a delivery date. So if I have a delivery date that I set, and then maybe I set a later value, or the particular use case I want to do is automatically set the delivery date based on when I scan the package. If it already has a delivery date set somehow, it doesn't update that value. It just leaves it as is. And then the inverse of this is update later. So only update the value if it sets it to a later value. And this is potentially useful for like shipping dates, where sometimes they say they ship on a particular date, but they actually ship on a later date, and you want to be able to track that and go from there. And then the last option here on my list is the log, which is what I want to be able to start doing is having a log of transitions that happen. So it takes the old values for the field and then puts that plus the new value into a form, so that you can see the transitions over time, and it's sort of a bit of an audit log, if you will. You can see here that we've defined the parameters. One is a field ID, so we want to know what the field is. The second is the config, which is the array of configurations, and those are essentially one of each of these fours. It returns your hopes and dreams. A bit of a joke there, it doesn't do anything yet. And you can see here that we have a call to get record from form with key. Let's go back down. Call to get record from form with key. It's not done yet. I actually need to fill in the last piece because I forgot how this works. Just hit save. But I know that I'm going to use the create method. I need the field ID for the right field, and then we'll go from there. This might actually have to be a search one, because I need to actually do 2 keys. We'll figure it out. And then we know we're going to set the field value, and we're going to basically stringify the configuration, and then we're going to save it. It doesn't work yet, obviously, because it's not finished. But I've already got the bits and pieces coming together. And then the next piece that I'm sort of noodling on is set manage field value, which updates a managed field based on the rules if it's set. And this is basically a simile of the set field value function, where it sets a value in the specified field, and then optionally disables the scripts that would run if the field value changes. And this is basically straight out of the standard Tapforms API. And in this case, we differ from the normal API, where if the field was actually updated is returned as a boolean, because if you'll recall, update earlier and update later may not actually update the value of the field, and so we want to be able to return that. In this case, we return set field value, which probably should actually be returned true, because set field value doesn't actually return anything, and is guaranteed to always be true. And then let's hit false at the moment, because technically we didn't update anything, so that makes us consistent. Lastly here, and you can see again, this is still in progress. We still have a bunch more code to write. And last but not least is some boilerplate code so that I can get a feel for what this API looks like. You know, document.get form named, rollups is a form I have, grab the records, set a value, a log if we can get that value back. And if I run this right now, let's just hit run on that, you can see we've got some profiler output, we've got the set manage field value here, getting the field configuration for the form, for the dummy field. We're trying to set a value, we're trying to get it back. Obviously this isn't a field that exists in the rollups. There's not a field-dummy, it's not a valid ID, but this is just so that I can get a feel for what working with this would look like and how we would get values back. Not particularly efficient right now, but it's here to sort of figure out how things would work for me in this particular case. And that's all I wanted to cover for this video. Just a very quick behind the scenes of here's what it looks like to have a script in sort of this non-functional state, bits and pieces all over the place as we put together the end goal. I roughly know what I want to achieve. Writing documentation in this case helps me think through how some of this should work, because I'm starting to define the contract, the API spec, and starting to understand what that might look like. Eventually, obviously, this is going to hopefully work properly, but at this point, you know, this is the step where I've written already 100 lines of code, 102 apparently, for this, and it still doesn't do anything realistically, except spit out some errors. So if you're working on scripting, if it's taking you a bit of time, don't fear. My videos aren't the greatest benchmark because, again, I've already figured out the answer. I try to keep them relatively concise for YouTube so that they're easier to consume, and you know, we're not going back and forth editing stuff, changing stuff, because we've already figured out the answer. So hopefully this inspires you to write your next Tapform script. If it's been useful, give me a like. If there was something you had a question about, leave a comment. And if these videos are useful and interesting for you in general, hit that subscribe button so you see the next video. Happy Tapformsing.